So here we are this morning in Oakland Lake, which is a branch, like an off branch or offshoot park of Alley Pond Park. And they call it a lake, but what I'll show you later is that this is not really a true lake. Alright, it's got an intake at the far end over there, and a constant flow of water coming in, and over in this corner is a constant flow of water coming out. As you can see, water is currently covered in what appears to be a biofilm, but it is mostly duckweed. So before I get to the duckweeds, I want to show you this plant, which is a common native plant. This is the evening primrose, Enothera biennis. This is a biannual plant. Grows in as a basal rosette in 1 year, and the next year it'll flower. Alright, this is a good food source for many birds. Now look at this. It's still open early in the morning, but it's mostly a night blooming plant. Let's see if I can get a close up of this. Look at this, the style. The stigma is parted into four. Looks like an X. It's a trademark for the Onagraceae, which is the family that this plant belongs to. There's quite a few of it. It'll produce a good fruit with some seeds that finches will eat. Okay, so here we have a species of sedge, and you know, maybe you've heard the saying, sedges have edges. Okay. Look at this. Three angles, like a triangle. It's got a triangular cross section. 1, 2, 3. And sedges have edges. This is the straw-colored sedge, or straw-colored bulrush. Right, over here we have a species. So we have a species of bidens. This is beggar's tick, probably. Yeah, we'll leave it at bidens right now. Actually, nice bug. This is in the Asteraceae. See, here's the capitulum, or the head of flowers, that's going to come up later. And over here we have a species of duck potato, colloquially known as duck potato. This is the Sagittaria latifolia, the broadleaf. Arrowhead is another common name. That's the problem with common names. You have so many for the same thing. And what you call arrowhead here might not be called arrowhead down in the south. So it could be potentially very confusing. Anyway, let's see what we got here. There we go. So here we have several species of duckweed in two different genera. You have the broadleaf one, which is Lemna, probably Lemna minor, and then in between those you see some smaller things. Anyway, so here's a better view. The broad-leaved plant is Lemna minor, most likely, and then you see in between, you see this little stuff? That's Wolffia. W-O-L-F-F-I-A. 2 F's. Okay, this happens to be the world's smallest flowering plant. Both members of the aroid family, or Araceae, right? And one of the well-known species of the Araceae that comes up in the spring is the jack-in-the-pulpit plant. So look that up if you don't know what that is. It's really nice. And it's ubiquitous in forests here in the city, and the relic forests left here in the city. And I'm trying to look to see if there's another one, because there used to be a third species that we could easily find, and that was called Spirodella. It had a rounder leaf. Right. Lemna. Here's a good lemna. As you can see, lemna has some roots on the undersurface of the leaf. Wolfia doesn't have any of that. Appreciate on my fingertip how small this stuff is. And it completely fills the pond. Yes, it's photosynthesizing as much as it can, especially now towards the end of the season. But the last couple of seasons I haven't been able to find Spirodella here. Probably a garden millipede, common garden. So here's a plant that all of you should know. This is poison ivy, leaves of 3, let it be, right? And it grows, as you know, grows as a vine, right? And here in this case is growing as a vine on a fence post right off the path. It's a good food source for birds, actually, when it fruits. And it's a good native plant. Unfortunately, a lot of people get contact dermatitis from it, as it's famous for doing so. And it's a little bit harder to identify in the spring when it's coming up as little red shoots off the ground. And in the wintertime, the compounds that people are allergic to are still active on the old roots that are left behind, on the climbing roots that are left behind on fence posts or trees. And this is known as Toxicodendron Radicans. And it's in the Anacardiaceae, same family as the cashews and the mangoes that we love to eat. So here's another sedge type of plant. It's got edges, 3 edges, 1, 2, 3. This is a sedge, and it's the 3-square bulrush. Right? And you can hear the nutlets where the flowers used to be. This is the fruit now. And it's a common species for wetlands like this. Okay, here you got a whole bunch of it growing right at the edge. Okay, and here we have the sweet gum tree. Okay, look at this. Yeah, right at the edge of the wetland. This is a wetland dependent tree, or tolerant. So this park, along with the rest of Valley Palm Park, Forest Park, Cunningham Park, and the cemeteries just off Highland Park and Highland Park itself, along to Prospect Park and on to Staten Island. These are all places that were marked, these are ridges that were marked by the terminal moraine of the last glaciation event. The Laurentian ice sheet reached up until this point, And it was here that the ice sheet was growing as fast as it was melting. So it was becoming a conveyor belt, bringing in all sorts of silt, rocks, and as the silt got deposited, the silt made it harder for water to drain into the ground, and become part of the underground water table. So that's why we get so many ponds and lakes in these parks. And you know, this was a great bed of biodiversity until people moved in and started chopping down trees. All of this is, I guess, secondary growth. Most of these trees were logged back in George Washington's day or earlier, and it's been allowed to come back. But for example, the dominant trees like tulip trees are not the 200-300 foot tall trees that they should be. And one of the characteristics of our ecology is that it's completely taken over by invasive species. And I just noticed that they've been doing some work in this park, and what used to be a thick stand of Phragmites, or the common reed, is no longer. They seem to have cut it down, chopped it down, and then replaced it as best they could with these sedges, native sedges and native grasses, which is good. Let's see how long it lasts. Over here, there's still some Phragmites, although it's not in flower, so I guess they did some damage. It's a common reed. Alright, there's still a couple of stands here and there. Oh, look at this. This is a beauty. Let's see what this is. This looks like the one I just showed you. That is the duck potato, or the arrowhead. This also has that arrow-shaped leaf. But I'll see if I can get a close-up of it. Hold on. Okay, so what I want to show you is that this leaf has what we call a marginal vein. It's a vein that parallels the margin. And let's see if I can get a good view of that. You see that vein? It parallels the margin of the leaf, which is entire in this case. And you don't get that in the duck potato. This is arum. Let's see if I can walk on this without killing myself. And here is the fruit. Yeah, so here are the fruit of the arum, Peltandra virginica. This is also an aroid, like the duck potato that I was showing you before. Look at this. Look at this. And if I were to open it up, what you would see So here's a nice one to look at. It's not native. It's native to Europe and Asia, and it's in the mint family, as you can tell if you knew what to look for. As you can tell, if you knew what to look for, it will have square stems. Let's see. Okay, here's the stem. It's got 4 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. As all members of the mint are opposite-leaved and have 4-sided stems. All right. Here is the infructescence, what used to be the flowers, and here we have some still in flower. Okay. Prunella vulgaris, or self-heal or heal all. And here's a really pretty native that we have. This is Impatience Capensus, and it's also known as jewelweed. Alright, some people find all sorts of uses for it, but I just appreciate the flowers and the fact that it's a good source of nectar for hummingbirds and bees. So if you want to see hummingbirds in the fall in New York City, look for this plant, because that's going to tell you where to look for the hummingbirds. Right? And the flower, you can see, let's see if I can get it closer. This is the nectarine in the curved portion back there. It's a zygomorphic flower, you know, bilaterally symmetrical. Alright, and if you look, one of the reasons they call it jewelweed is because of the beating effect that the water has on the leaves. It has the leaves have a repellent property to them. So here's the fruit of this jewelweed. And this is characterized by a trait that little kids have fun with, and it's violent dehiscence. Right. So remember, dehiscence is the splitting of something, usually a fruit, over a preformed line of weakness, and this guy has it right here. Let's see if this works. If I just barely touch it, no, it's not ready. If they're not ready, yeah, if you put a little pressure on it, it'll explode. Depends. When they're really ready, all you have to do is barely touch the fruit. That's not ready either. I'll see what I can do, if I can find something. So here's one that looks ready. I'm willing to wager. Otherwise I'm going to look like a fool. Alright, let's see. Whoa, look at that! Did you see that? Oh, it split right away. It barely touched the thing. Where are the seeds? There you go. There's one seed. Here's a nice tulip tree. Look how straight that trunk is. Goes straight up. Here's another one in the sunlight. Lyriodendron Teleperfera. In the springtime it gets these beautiful tulip-like flowers, and I guess you could stretch it and say the leaves also kind of look like the outline of a tulip. And this is Lobelia Inflata. As you can tell, the fruits look like little inflated balloons, so it's pretty easy to identify. And we're early enough in the season where we can still see it in flower. Look at that. Typical Lobelia morphology of the flower is zygomorphic with 3 lobes on the bottom, on the lower petal. Okay. Let's take a picture of this. So here's a typical 3-lobed bottom petal of these zygomorphic flowers. The top is also lobed, split into 2. Okay, and you have the inflated fruit. This is Lobelia Inflata in the Campanulaceae. It's about 250 or so species that are native, and they're also found throughout the world. I've seen these growing in Africa, but they're huge, like trees. This is an annual. It's not going to survive the oncoming winter. And what it does is it produces a ton of seeds, and hopefully next year it comes back. And it does. It has been doing that for thousands of years, if not millions. Yeah, okay, so here we have a member of the goldenrod family. This is a group of species that are native to us. And this one appears to be Solidago Altissima. And I say so because there's very fine differences between this and Solidago canadensis. This one, let's see if I can get this focus. This one's puberulent, you know, kind of hairy on the stems, not glaucous, right? And then it does have a toothy leaf, but it's inconspicuous, as the key puts it. All right, if this was canadensis, you'd have bigger teeth. All right, so it's a pretty tall one too. Look at these flowers. This is in the member Asteraceae. This is a member of the Asteraceae clade. You see flower heads, capitulums in a cluster. This is like a cyme, which is a type of inflorescence. Very pretty. So anyway, as I was saying, this is not a lake. This is a slow-moving stream, and this is the intake of that lake. Right, this is where the water comes in. Right over that direction is LaGuardia. Sorry, not LaGuardia. Queensboro Community College, and this is a bunch of wetland over there, and there's an underground source of water, and the water comes in this way and goes underneath the path here and into the quote-unquote lake. We have a nice assortment of plants here. This is jewelweed again, and we have a nice native here also. This is Johnny Jumpseed, or just Jumpseed. Polygonum virginiana, and it's, let's see if I can get this to be a little bit in focus. Looks like it might be in flower now, actually. But when these seeds are ready, all you got to do is move your hand across the peduncle, and these little seeds, these little fruit, jump out in all directions. And it's a good native to plant in places that have been disturbed. You have things like, let's see if I can get here without breaking a foot. You have things like this. Let's see if I can get some light on this. Porcelain berry, okay, which is a nasty invasive. This is a nasty invasive that'll take over canopies and undergrowth. The berries are pretty, and the birds eat them. It's what disperses this plant from place to place. Meanwhile, just a little bit down the path, you can see the Japanese polygonum, which is that, with the white flowers. It's a nasty invasive plant that really doesn't belong here. Alright, I showed you this last week, and you can tell, you know, it's very pretty. It's in the Polygonaceae, just like the Jumpseed. If you get rid of this, the Jumpseed is a good alternative to plant in its place. Here are those broad leaves. Okay. Yeah. And just look at that porcelain berry underneath. So here's that Phragmites I was telling you about, and it completely covers the pond's edge. I hope they cut this stuff down. You see the fruit at the top of the these reeds, the flower heads. All right, that's the characteristic of this Phragmites communis. There's other species as well, maybe some mixed in there. But the most common one is Phragmites communis, and it's in the grass family, Poaceae. Here's another member of the Asteraceae that everybody knows by name, maybe not by sight. This is giant ragweed. This is what the meteorologist always talks about when ragweed count, pollen count is up. Look at the flowers. But you can recognize it through this large, rough leaf, which is trident in shape. It's a native plant, and it's a good food source for birds like the grosbeaks, like the rose-breasted grosbeak, blue grosbeak. They actually like to eat the seeds of this. Look at this. Yeah, just a little bit past blooming, I think. Lots of pollen. Okay, so here's a great example of what I was talking about at the beginning of the video. Here you have the really fine stuff, is Wolfia. Then you have Lemna minor, and here is Spirodella. Finally, you got to see this guy. Let's get a close-up of this. Got nice, larger, much larger than Lemna, rounder leaves, and a good amount of roots underneath. I'm kind of tempted to take this back for my aquarium. So if we can get a steady. Here's that Ranunculus again. And it's in the Ranunculaceae, which is the crowfoot family, and it's, if you take a look at the leaves, you can see why it gets that name, crowfoot. Now, I've gone around the lake, which is about approximately 3/4 of a mile around, and I've come to the outflow portion of the lake. So the water is coming out at this rate, and you saw the rate at which it comes in. And in between, it slows down quite a bit to form this quote-unquote lake. So this water is draining out to Alley Creek, which was carved by the last glaciation. The creek itself was carved out of the land by the last glaciation event. Right. So here's another member of the Asteraceae. This is a late boneset, and you have opposite leaves. They are a little bit serrate. Zoom up, focus in on this. There we go. A little bit dentate actually. And you have this flat head of capitula, or heads, multiple heads. Let's see if we can get a close-up of those flowers. Look at that. Okay. And next to it growing is a member of the Apocynaceae, the dogbane family, which the milkweeds are in it now too. And this is actually dogbane. Oh look, a milkweed bug. There's two species, and I always confuse the two. One is larger, one is smaller. You can easily look it up. Right, this is the dogbane, and it's characterized by these fruit. These follicles, these fruit are follicles, which dehisce along a preformed line of weakness. Right, and they have these seeds with this fluffy material that allows it to disperse very easily. And some more goldenrods. Asclepias syriaca, and as you know, this is a species. That's a nice Buckeye butterfly, common Buckeye. This is a species of plant that has some alkaloids that are toxic to most vertebrates. And so what happens is you have a butterfly species, or a few of them, that take advantage of it, and we know that species is the monarch. Alright, so birds don't eat it because of the alkaloids that it's accumulated from these plants. Alright, so this is Asclepias in the formerly Asclepiadaceae, but now it's in the Apocynaceae. Here, let's see if we can't find any monarchs. Oh, yeah, look there. There it is. There's a beautiful monarch caterpillar. Let's see. Look at this guy. Isn't that gorgeous? I'm going to put you right there. Yeah, you take care of yourself. Oh, look, another one. There's the frass. After it eats the leaves, that's what comes out the other end. Anyway, so here are the follicles. Here are the follicles. These are all very wet, but when they get dry, you get the fluffy stuff on the inside. Let's see. This is all rotten. Let's take a look. Maybe it's been too wet. Yeah, it's all rotten on the inside. That's terrible. So the few follicles I found are rotten, and I can't show you the seeds. That'll be another time, another place. Yeah, so anyway, here we have a nice species of milkweed. This is the Asclepias tuberosa. And here you can see the leaves are much narrower, much thinner, and a little bit more glandular anyway. Hairier. And over there, we've got a monarch butterfly currently pollinating this milkweed. And let's see if we can get a close-up of these flowers. Look at that. Okay, so here we have the petals, and we have some special structures, which are the hoods. And inside you have little horn-like structures, which we call the horns. That's in the nectaries. Inside we have five pairs of pollinia, which are made to look like saddlebags. There's not too many things out there that make pollinia, which is a cluster of pollen, and the orchids and the asclepiads are two of those groups that do that, possibly the only two. There are the horns right aiming towards the center. Okay, this is a real nice find here. And what we got here is a nice field of native plants. We got black-eyed Susies, and we have some native grasses, and we got the goldenrods. We have a New England asters and Nova boracensis, evening primrose, right? Enophera biennis. I showed you that one already. We have here's the other milkweed. You see how broad those leaves are? Yeah, I showed that one before also. With some goldenrods. Oh, just went through a spider web. It's okay. He'll rebuild it. She will rebuild it. That's a lot of common evening primrose. Some bone set. And that purple stuff over there. Let's see if I can see it here. There's the Noveboracensis. Genus name is escaping me right now. Yeah. So, as you can hear, there's lots of crickets, there's lots of grasshoppers, and all sorts of butterflies. This is what a native field looks like, as opposed to what you normally encounter in our city parks. Isn't that pretty? Let's see what this one is. Yeah, look at those teeth. Those teeth are not inconspicuous. Those are conspicuous teeth. This is a little bit rough too. The stem is glaucous, or yeah, a little bit. You can rub off. It's not very pubescent at all. So this is quite possibly. This is very difficult to do, but this is quite possibly the Canada goldenrod. I apologize. Solidago canadensis. That's a pearl crescent. This is an Asteraceae. This is Chicorum intybum, or intybus. I think it's intybum, and it's in the Chicorium tribe, which is usually, you can tell those from the amount of lobes on each ligule. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on each of the ray flowers. So this is a capitulum of ray flowers. All right. And it's not a native though.